How much more impactful could your business be if you forgave the unforgivable? Are all grudges and unresolved conflicts silently holding your business back from its true impact and growth? Are you ready to discover how forgiveness can transform not just your business relationships, but also your entire approach to leadership and success? Join me after the intro for a conversation with a very special friend with whom we will answer these and many more questions. So grab a cup of coffee, settle in, and let's start. Hi, I'm Rossana D, and this is Forgive and Thrive, a podcast where we explore what thriving in life means and how we can achieve it, irrespective of our past, current condition, and expectations that those around us or society in general may have. Let's go. Welcome to the Forgive and Thrive show. We have often talked about forgiveness, which is obviously a core topic for our show, but we have always focused on the impact of forgiveness on us and how it can help us moving forward in our life. But can forgiveness also drive business success? Could forgiveness unlock a new level of personal power, creativity, and business impact? Could the key to working smarter, not harder, simply be releasing the things that are holding us back? Now, you might be thinking, forgiveness in business? It might sound a little bit out of place, right? Well, let's see. Today, we want to understand if and how forgiveness can also be a driving force for business success and impact. And we dive into this fascinating topic in a conversation with today's guest, Grace Mosgeller. Affectionately known as the Mindset Makeover Angel, Grace has helped thousands of entrepreneurs break free from self-sabotage, overcome addictive patterns, and deepen their relationships. As a mindset mentor and energy healer, her guidance has helped entrepreneurs unlock financial abundance and boldly step into their authentic power to flourish in every area of life. Her passion to help strong women leaders heal relationships sparked her to publish her book, The Freedom to Flourish. Stop hustling and start thriving. Hi, Grace. Welcome to the Forgive and Thrive show. Thank you so much for being with us today.
Oh, thank you. Thank you so much. I'm really honored to be here. Forgiveness, I think, is core to really thriving in any area of your life, especially in business.
And with that introduction, I'm really, really eager to start talking about forgiveness in business. But before we go there, I would love to start with you and learn a little bit more about you, in particular your journey into forgiveness, especially forgiveness at work or in business.
Well, in my work, and I've been doing this for almost 27 years. Forgiveness for me started off when I realized that the troubles in my marriage with my husband weren't all his fault. Some of them were mine. And as I dug deeper, like I started with Tony Robbins and I just did all his strategies for making your business grow. And I would go bam into a wall and fall down, bam into a wall and fall down. And you wouldn't think that the relationship with your husband and the grief, the resentment, the anger, the blame that you place on him relates to business. But what I found was when I started to forgive him, I became freer and more empowered in my business life. That was just the beginning. As the years went by and the more forgiveness I did, and each time I forgive, they were like little roadmap triggers, if you will, of why I needed forgiveness. Basically, whenever I ran into some sort of wall in my business or with raising my children. And so, because remember, everything is a mirror around you, and what you resist persists. So whenever you come up with something resistant, you have to dive deeper. And what I found for business, a lot of the causes of the resentment that hold you back, of the blame and the anger that hold you back, really can be traced back to financial traumas as well. Can be traced back to anger at your parents. It can be traced back to bankruptcy, to not being insured when you need it most, to loss of income after death or divorce, and also from making really poor business decisions. And some of it is blaming yourself. Some of it's blaming other people. Some of it's blaming situations. But what I've learned and what I've found is when you hear yourself say, I should have, or they should have, that's an indication that there's an underlying need for forgiveness if you want to move past that and thrive.
With this podcast, Forgive and Thrive, I couldn't agree more. But if I had to be the devil's advocate for a moment, people may say, yes, okay, forgiveness, I can see it in a personal life. I can see it in my relationship with my partner. You mentioned your husband, with a friend, but in business, really, where really forgiveness comes when we are in a working environment, and how can it really help us?
Well, has anybody ever had a boss that they just can't stand, but they just kind of pull up there, they just, yes, ma'am, and you just do what they say? Or a coworker that just takes over the show and takes credit for what you've done. Or you're in business, like you're on a networking call, you're an entrepreneur, you're on a networking call, same thing. Someone's dominating the conversation and you can't get your word in. Or you're working for yourself as an entrepreneur and you can't get yourself out of the starting gate. Maybe you've put together this huge program and it's perfect and it's aligned with what you're here to teach. But you can't market it. You can't get yourself, it's just like it's walking through mud to do the things that you need to do in your business that will make you money, or to go to work and lift the weight of, I don't want to go to work. Lack of motivation. I mean, like if someone's telling you what to do, and especially so I work a lot with soul archetypes, and especially if you have the soul archetype of a leader, then one of the number one things is a leader will not follow someone they don't respect. And I'm in the spiritual world, and spirituality does work in business because business is all about relationships, and spirituality is all about the evolution of relationships in the higher self, of kindness, of compassion, of understanding, of unconditional love, all the ingredients needed for forgiveness. And to do that, the biggest stumbling block I found is understanding. So back to the archetype of a leader, one of the number one things is a leader will not follow someone they don't respect. And if they've got a boss out there they don't respect for X, Y, and Z reasons, because as humans, we're wired, oh, they did that wrong, they did this wrong, they did that wrong. And then we, at that judgment at the deeper level, has some resentment. And that resentment can be traced back to your first tribe. And when I talk about tribes, I'm a work with clearing the chakras. And so first chakra is all about physical world, tribes, fitting in. And so your first tribe is, of course, your first family and the dynamics that go on that. And so that's when you learn, that's when you're programmed. And then you go on to the school tribe, and then you go on to the work tribe. And the dynamics within them are similar to what happened in childhood. And so forgiveness in business is extremely applicable because business is all about relationships. It's not, get the work done. When you push a button on me, we can start talking about AI and how they're going to probably eliminate a lot of workplace issues by replacing them with robots that don't have emotions, and they'll just do the work.
That's true. You mentioned one word, leader or leadership.
Yes.
And very often the typical stereotype of leader, at least the classic idea, the classical stereotype, is someone that needs to tick boxes. And when we talk about forgiveness, when we talk about compassion, we bring a human element into the equation. So what would you say to any person that is a leadership level and that they don't really understand or accept the fact that they need to include these additional elements, and they want to stick with that classical stereotype of alpha male leader where everything is done with the bottom line right at the core?
Well, part of a leader is to get whoever their tribe is, whoever they're in charge of, to do what they want to do, because the leader has the vision, the leader has the purpose. And in order to have the team that supports the vision and the purpose, they've got to get that team to work together cohesively. And so a classic example I learned was with Tony Robbins was they took two airplanes that were getting ready to be built. And one set of workers were told, just do this. And the other set of workers were told, here's your job. But as you're making this job, remember, this plane is going to be built as a rescue jet to send supplies to people in third world countries that need our help. And so which airline was more productive? The second one, because there's that human element, that human purpose. So a leader's job is to get their team to buy into the purpose. And you can't buy into the purpose if you don't know why. And if you're being triggered by power over commands that don't take in account your feelings. Yeah, and to a certain extent, you can't be like overly needy, but at the same time, you have to feel safe. You have to be able to feel safe enough to be vulnerable, like Brene Brown. I was watching one of her shows the other day, and some astronaut was too afraid to mention this problem, that if he had felt safe enough to mention this problem, the rocket ship that took off wouldn't have crashed and died and killed people. That's the compassion piece. So bringing it back down to reality, how do you do that? Well, you asked me about my trip into forgiveness. I had my dad was a big CEO in an oil company. He was the top dog. And so he treated me like he treated his employees, because he was also a lieutenant in the army in the Korean War, how he treated his underlings. We were in a war situation. Do this or die. There's no room for emotions. But he did that with us, my brother and I, growing up. So we had no room for emotions. And let me tell you, I was crippled. I was crippled in personal power because I have to do it this way or the highway, my way or the highway, his way, right? And I couldn't be myself. And the more I forgave and allowed myself to be myself, the more creative I became, the more powerful I became, and the more able I was to speak up in situations where, hey, this might not be the right thing, or have you thought of this? So the innovation. And when people have a purpose and they're treated with respect, of course, they're going to want to contribute. But if they're treated as if they're nobody, which is very disrespectful, and if they're treated as if they're less than anything, they're more focused on that trauma than on productivity.
There is so much already to unpack in what you mentioned. There are at least a couple of things that came to my mind listening to you. The first that you mentioned is innovation. I strongly agree with that. Only when you can really release all those emotions, you can also give space to creativity to flourish. So I love that. And I would love perhaps go deeper on the innovation aspect and creativity that can come from that. And the other aspects are talking, you mentioned your dad that was this big CEO and had this very military kind of attitude towards life and work. And perhaps misconceptions that perhaps sometimes people may have around forgiveness and being vulnerable in leadership role.
So I can tie all this back down to the different soul personality types. So when we're talking innovation, we're talking the creative types, right? Like the Einsteins, the Georgia O'Keeffes, the Steve Jobs, right? And, that bell curve of early adopters, and then the average people, and then it goes on, until things like when new innovations become accepted. So the creatives are typically really wacky. Innovators have this soul personality called a creative idealist. They're out of the box. And they can think of 100 things at once. And a lot of times other personality types, the ones that are commanding dictators, the ones that like the power over and control and do this and that, they love to structure chaos. So they look at these innovators as, you need to color back inside the lines, come down. And so there's a mismatch in understanding between them because the innovators are out there, see what we can do. And the realists, the structured, they love to structure chaos and they're rule keepers. And they say, you're outside the box. You can't do that. And so they want to pull them down. And so they'll, in extreme situations, they might label them ADHD and give them a pill and tell them something's wrong with them, right? Or they'll just say, you're crazy, and then not give them the respect that they need. And then the creative idealists will look at the rule keepers, and the first thing is, you're no fun. But in the workplace, it's like, oh, I have to clip my wings. I have to follow the rules or I'll get fired. I have to follow the rules or people won't like me. They won't understand me. And so when I do work with entrepreneurs, I find that the big creative types have squashed their creativity and they're wearing, quote, a mask. And, going back to how this applies for productivity in business or in entrepreneurship, when you've got wearing this mask of I have to follow the rules when you're built to be outside the box, your passion's gone. You're unhappy, you're depressed because you're not being yourself. And then as far as leadership, how do you let a leader thrive? I mean, how do you let a creative thrive in your business if that's your thing? Well, you got to let them play. And you can't keep them, like if they come 5 minutes late, you don't dock them. They'll gladly stay 5 minutes longer if you just ask them, because the rules are kind of like guidelines. Like for me, I have a strong creative type, and my dad was a very strong structured type. And I was able to forgive him when I understood big picture, this dynamic, and realized he came from the Great Depression and he was in the wars. And the people that were like me, out of the box like this, they got killed first. So he actually was loving me by giving me structure. And the leader in me that was squashed as well, because that's another thing about leaders is they want to make everyone around them support them. So the part of me that's got leadership qualities was squished. But in defense, in order to survive, you become a rebel. And so what I see a lot in creatives that have their wings clipped is they can't get themselves to stay on a schedule, even though they know it's important. And it's because they have this underlying vow that I will never let them control me, right? And so they can't stick to a schedule, even though they have that capability within them. And I also find that leaders who are creatives that have been squashed down, when they start to forgive whatever the cause was for clipping their wings and allow themselves to step out of the box and just be wacky and enjoy it without guilt, because then they're free. So that being said, one thing that, I witness a lot of people come to me after, well, I forgave, I've been creative, but they're still stuck. And so a lot of coaches and healers will give very useful information for creatives that, have had their wings clipped, is go out and dance, go out and being creative, start painting and stuff like that, which is a great outlet. It takes a lot of time though, but with spiritual healing and transformation, you can do it quickly and you get to the core root, because it is body, it is mind, it is spirit, and so I also fell in love with somatic breath work to get the issues out of your tissues really quickly, then energy healing to work with the spirit, and then the mindset coaching, like the mindset mentor part of me is to, especially with trauma, especially if you've been shut down, you don't even know the mindset you're supposed to have to help you thrive, because it's been squashed down, and you'll never find it till you do the work to forgive, because forgiveness breeds clarity. When you release the guilt of past mistakes or the blame of past atrocities, control, abuse, that's when you clear the path for limitless growth.
It's so beautiful, and you also create a space for something else. And I
Yeah.
guess I know that for a fact in my own story, when I started forgiveness journey, I made a lot of space, and I always thought of myself as a very structured person, perhaps like your father. And then since I started the journey, I actually come to the realization that I'm quite creative as well, and that creativity has been completely squashed, to use your word, from that little girl that just wanted to create things into the nice girl that society wanted.
Yes.
Yeah.
Well, one thing I will say about the soul personality that you have, because I just in general things. So you're definitely a leader, strong leader. And one thing about leaders is they have all the qualities. There's 5 different specific qualities, and I teach that in my 5-day challenge. But the first day of that, so the soul quality that you possess is that of the one that loves to organize chaos and to create systems and structures. That's your sole purpose. That's how you love. That's how you contribute to the world. And so because with the leader, you see the big picture, but as you make peace with all the different parts, the 5 parts of the personalities within yourself, and then also within the people around you, you're set up to create really amazing wealth. You're very impactful. And the creatives, and it's really hard to tell when you've really integrated and evolved as your soul personalities to be in the higher self, to be uninhibited with defenses, to be free to flourish, right? When you're that way, you are uber creative and you bring structure to it. And you have the heart and compassion, the nurturing, which is another personality. And you have the sensitivity, right? And so all those combined together make you very powerful, very powerful.
Not yet, but we are on the path.
Yes. Well, that's the whole thing. That's the hardest thing to accept. Like once as an achiever, I've got a lot of achiever in me too, right? And it's like, I want that now. Not happening.
Absolutely. But what are you saying? I think it goes back to that idea of the classical idea of a leader. And with that, I would like to ask you about the misconceptions that perhaps we have around forgiveness that you have seen with working with other people. When you mention forgiveness, what is the first reaction?
A lot of times people don't believe that their betrayer, their victimizer deserves to be forgiven. And that's the biggest one. And that's why, you mentioned earlier, I think in our little pre-discussion we were talking about that it's really hard to understand why a father would rape their child, right? It's hard to understand why a family member or a best friend would steal their money. So when you see the higher self and lower self defensive behaviors and motivations of a leader and the other soul personality types, you begin to understand. And, like Einstein said, with understanding, we fear less so we can love more. And it primes you for that. So another big, huge misunderstanding that I get is, well, I've already forgiven my father and my mother. But there's so many different aspects of what they did for you. They forgive you for one incident or for a lifetime of incidences, right? And so I work with archetypes. And when you work with archetypes, instead of having to go with, well, I have to forgive them for not being there when I was abandoned or not listening to me, for raping me, for whatever, right? And so especially like with rape, there's like so many of us women been raped and nobody says anything. And some of us like me, I didn't even know, but I had all the symptoms of it, which is like feeling powerless, and feeling numb in the body. That's devastating. Why would someone do that? But with forgiveness really does set you free. So going back to a common misconception is, oh, well, I've already forgiven my father. Okay. So haven't you forgiven yourself for being a victim? Have you forgiven yourself for being powerless? Have you forgiven him for taking away your power instead of I forgive him for raping me? There's deeper aspects to it. Something as traumatic as that really addresses the power archetypes. Like if anybody knows about Carolyn Myss and the 4 power archetypes, a major trauma like that really addresses your inner child. Your inner child gets squished, powerless. Then the other one is the saboteur. All of a sudden, you don't want to show your brightness. So your saboteur will not show your brightness. And guess what? Your brightness is your soul's purpose. So when you forgive, then you can love more, because then your saboteur starts giving you opportunities to shine brightly, to succeed, to fulfill, to become financially abundant, to have the relationships that you want. But until then, you're self-sabotaging. So the saboteur, and a lot of times you become sort of like, the prostitute is kind of a weird name, but I'm not a prostitute, but prostitute's all about self-respect. And where are you giving yourself away and not getting anything back? Where are you disrespecting yourself and letting others mistreat you? And another thing about forgiveness, Carolyn Myss talks about the pathway of victim to victorious is this little tiny thing called victimizer. That I was like, what do you mean? I was victimized by my parents. I'm not a victimizer. But remember when we started off by saying I was blaming my ex-husband? Well, when I went to do the work to heal that relationship and, at the same time, bring myself to be abundant in work, I realized I was being exactly like my commandant father, that became a single mom, and I married a man that didn't have a spine at all. So the only role modeling I had for power that I trusted was that of my father. So I became a commanding dictator. In fact, my kids used to call me that. And so I had to do a lot of forgiving myself for becoming that. So victim, victimizer, and on the other side of that is victorious. But when you're a victim and you've been squashed, you don't even know what victorious looks like. All you know is, I was meant for more. This shouldn't be this way. And like for me, in my path of growing through forgiveness, I couldn't see my future. I know I wanted more money. I know I wanted to help people. And I had all these things, but when you do those visualizations, mind, body, spirit, you're talking to your future successful self. I had the hardest time talking to her, connecting with her. And it was through forgiveness, getting past that anger to clear away that fray so that, this is who I am. This is what I want. And then that pathway becomes clear. And so something I really want to say about anger, and all this that I'm talking about is in my free, each day of the 5-day challenge is called the Personal Power Accelerator 5-day challenge. So anger is the life force energy of self-respect and of positive change. Because if you weren't angry, it means you didn't deserve better. Nothing was wrong. Anger knows that you deserved better. And so if you take anger and get it out of your body, you take rage into outrage, then all of a sudden that fray is gone and you've got the bandwidth, you've got the time, like you were talking before, to let the creativity flow, right? So you have to realize who you really are, what is my identity, and what did I deserve? And then there's going to be some forgiveness that you need to do in the 4th chakra, back and forth, so that you have the freedom to flourish, right? So when I say the freedom to flourish, and so we're talking the higher self part. So that's that compassion, the understanding, mutually beneficial win-win situations. That's what the freedom to flourish is. And when you get the anger out of the way, you can see what that is.
I absolutely love that. I'm fighting a daily battle for win-win situation with my organization, and I'm not winning yet the win-win. But I totally agree. Every situation has the potential to show a win-win situation, win-win-win-win. Everybody can win out of it. So thank you very much for reminding that. And also, I love what you say about anger and rage. Sometimes we hear these emotions labeled as negative emotions, and I don't quite like that definition, because I don't think any emotion is negative per se. It's there to tell us something. And it's so important what you reminded us here, that rage and anger are there to tell us that something isn't right. and that we deserve more. And sometimes we feel also guilty because we are feeling that rage. And it's a combination of emotion over emotion that are all disempowering, and they are not taking us anywhere. So I think it's very important to reframe everything, as you just suggested.
I like that word, reframe everything. That's going to be a motto. Reframe everything. So the other thing about anger, especially, I was talking soul archetypes. So anger, with the revenge and power over, and you just create a bunch of mice that won't tell you, hey, you got a leak over here. They won't tell you because they're afraid. So the other soul personality type, the nurturer, often their defense to get through life is to deny that they're angry. I don't get angry. I can't tell you how many coaches and healers that have come or mothers that have come to me and, well, Grace, I'm not angry. I don't get angry. So when I work in the very, very deep levels, and it turns out there's a vow that we said is, I will never be as angry as that parent, or I will never be angry again because I hurt somebody. And so that anger, like I said, is life force energy. It's a powerhouse. And if you shut it down, you become depressed. So like what I said before, if you're a creative and you're not expressing your sole purpose of creativity because someone's, got you confined and clipped your wings, that creates depression. And underlying all that's probably a lot of anger. But also the good girls, the nurturers, who see their parent or their person in authority as out of control. They need to manage their emotions, and they manage their emotions by giving, 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 giving. And I'm not angry. I'm here to serve. I'm the good girl. So I work with them, and there's a process where I teach you how to feel safe and authentic, expressing power, so that all your labels of good girls don't get angry, or I will never get angry. So you can bypass that and really access your power. Because remember, anger is like, I deserve better. Something needs to change. And if you're suppressing that, you don't have power.
I absolutely love that. Grace, when we talk about these scales, I like to call them feminine scales or feminine qualities like compassion, sensitivity, empathy. We think about embracing them for ourselves. So it's a personal journey. You say that is something that can be also embraced as a group or an organization, for example. We are talking about business. So is it something that as an organization we can say, okay, we need these skills. We need to include these skills in the way we do business.
I'm like, this is my passion. So it starts with the leader. The leader has to want it, because the leader creates the culture. And if the leader knows they need to forget, knows they need compassion, but their judgment, they're in their head and they're like, fully justified judgment. Like, well, of course they need to be punished because they didn't jump through this hoop, right? And they're not down in their heart. They don't access that compassion. They need to work with someone like me in order to be able to feel it, to embody it, to have it within themselves. So that would be step one. Because I see a lot of organizations where they've brought somebody in to teach their team the skills, but they don't teach the leader skills. And so these people know all this, but the leader's kind of clueless, and the pattern continues. The other thing is, especially if you just have a small organization, but the leader does set the stage. And what there's just that spiritual principle, you give what you want, right? Treat your neighbor as you want to be treated. So if you want respect, you respect your employees. I was fortunate enough to see Peter Drucker speak in Canada, I don't know, 20 years ago. He had a big, huge organization, and he talked about knowing the names of the janitors, right? And exchanging Thanksgiving gifts personally. So that kind of connection and getting to know the person, how do you think a janitor who knows the big CEO is going to care about the building? And the way, there's this spiritual principle that I wholeheartedly believe in is that love counters fear. Love melts fear. Love is more powerful than fear. So if the leader is treating his associates, his team with love, with care, with respect, with compassion, without them even going to get training, which of course they're all going to go, well, something's wrong with me? Really? But if he does that, it's going to come back to him. What you give, you receive. You plant the seeds, right? And those that are able to receive and give back will stay. Some people aren't ready to feel comfortable receiving love, especially people with a lot of trauma. So if they're in an environment which is pretty toxic, they love it. They're just right at home and they'll bitch and moan and complain about it the whole day. But if that culture changes, they're either going to raise and change with it, or they're going to move on and find another environment where they feel comfortable, because change isn't comfortable.
Very helpful. There is one aspect. Certainly, we are in a situation with very rapid changes in the landscape around us, and businesses and organizations need to adapt very, very quickly. Is there a connection between forgiveness, would you say, or soft skills connected to forgiveness, so compassion, empathy, what we mentioned before, and the ability to adapt and therefore thrive in a rapidly changing business landscape? What would you say?
Yeah, so that's when I think the leader really needs to embrace his compassion skills, because nobody likes change. They're afraid of change. They're terrified of change. And if the leader's terrified of change, then that's the sinking ship. So I spoke before that everything comes from the family, the tribe. And the leader is the leader, or the father, the mother, the patriarch or the matriarch of the family. But they're the leader of their family, their tribe. And so their job is to love them, to make them feel safe, to make them feel heard. And so the leader's other job is to pitch the vision. And so for a leader to have compassion and understanding for his team is to go, hey, we're in changing times. Got to embrace it. I'm scared too, to that vulnerability piece. I'm scared too. And these are the things that we need to adapt and to grow and prosper. And I want that for you too, right? And include them. Like, it's a we, not you will do for me, which is a very common behavior for a leader who's not fully aware and able to access that part that just is caring about the family. So really have the leader get clear on the vision, and navigate the storm, like pretend he's on a ship in the storm, and to prepare his team for, we're in a storm with changing waves, they're coming out of nowhere, and we have to adapt. And I think that's going to really, the vision, always repeating the vision. Why? The purpose. When I work with people, I get down to their purpose. And once they've got their purpose, then the purpose of their business. And so their messaging becomes better. Their visioning becomes better. They become a better leader for themselves, for their team, for the people they serve. And it all comes down to purpose. Anytime you come to a storm, what's the purpose? One of the soul qualities of a leader that many of them hide, because it is a very, very sensitive nature, because that's the part of them that really taps into what they care about. And they need that sensitive part of them to be able to stand up, go into battle, and be willing to die for it. But so many leaders hide that part of themselves because, historically, kings and queens had their family members murdering them in the night or poisoning them. So they don't trust, right? And automatically, if they show vulnerability, they're open to takeover. So what is that difference? And I'll go back to love versus fear, that the big misconception in leadership is that the stick is more powerful than the carrot. But when you take it down to the full power of love, and expand it the way I know how to expand it, it becomes more powerful than fear, and it will navigate the storm. You become the center of the storm, the calm within the storm. So the storm's happening around you, and then you and your business has this focus, this purpose based in love, connected with the divine, right? And so you move through the storm calm, relaxed, and peaceful. Do you have to jump around a little bit? Yes, but you always regain your center.
I love that you mentioned sensitivity, because I think as a society, we don't give too much consideration to sensitivity. In fact, perhaps we think it's not a good quality to have. I remember a colleague once said, "Oh, you are just too sensitive." And I said, "Well, yeah, I am, and I'm grateful for that, because it puts me on a different level of understanding." But sensitivity is something that is always, downplayed from a societal point of view. So what do you think we should change to change the perception and reframe, to use the word that we use?
I like that word, reframe sensitivity. So reframe sensitivity, like, I mean, go back to that story where my father saw me, being super sensitive and out of the box, and how those people got killed in battle. So that's true. We need to harness our emotions when we're in battle. That's the truth. But we don't live in a survival world anymore. Even the homeless have access to tons of food if they want it. So sensitivity makes us aware of our surroundings. And it's something that an AI, a machine, can never have. They can get close, but it has to be programmed into them. They can't feel it. They can't access it. The sensities is what makes life rich, which makes life meaningful, these intangibles. And the more sensitive we are, but actually the more powerful we are. And I will go on to say that the sensitives, like all the healers and the coaches, the empaths that are coming up, they look like a train wreck. They look unpowerful. And that's because their job is to absorb negative energies. Everybody's just learning now. Their purpose is to transmute them. It's just like we're the filter for negative energies. And so our sensitive natures are like these filters, and really building up that core of love and spreading it out. And remember, love is more powerful than fear. That those sensitive people can tap into the power of love, go into that truth that you really do. Power is love. The power of love and changes the world, shifts humanity. Can one person do that alone? No. Millions of people living in their core, living with love, can balance the fear, the hatred, the need to power over in the world. And I'm a martial artist. In martial arts, they teach us that power is a double-edged sword. You've got your yin, you've got your yang. You've got your power over, you've got your unconditional love. And they teach us, you can hurt a body, or you can break a bone, you can put them on their head, you can break their neck, but you can also, those same moves, those same points with intention can heal. So you need both. And it's not either or, because if you're too sensitive, you're going to get powered over. But if you embrace your dark side, like one of my masters, my jiu-jitsu masters told me, a true Jedi embraces their dark side. You have to be willing to kill. Do we want to kill? No. You have to show your power. You have to show people that want to test your boundaries, that you're not going to put up with it. So that's why having a strong military in a nation of peace is important, because we live in a black and white world. There's people that want what we have. Are we willing to give it to them? Absolutely. But they're not wired to receive yet. They're wired to take and to resent.
That's absolutely beautiful. Grace, very quickly, are there one or two practices that you can suggest for people to embrace forgiveness, particularly to integrate it in their business, in their organizations, as a, let's say, sort of strategy going forward?
The most simple foundational thing that I can suggest is number one, have the intention that you want to do that. And whatever your divine connection is, tap into that, because then opportunities for that will show up. I think the intention would be, I want to bring compassion, understanding, forgiveness into my business. What's the best solution for me? And the universe will provide. And then follow that. The second one is, if you're a leader, do that work yourself. And there's a very, very simple forgiveness phrase that you can look up on YouTube. It's called Ho'oponopono. I don't.
I struggle as well.
There's 4 sentences, and I had an intuitive business coach that added 1 extra sentence that did the best for me. And it's very simple. The first sentence is, I love you. And if you remember namaste, which means the light in me salutes the light in you. So when you say, I love you to somebody who's mean, nasty, and ugly, that's an opportunity to connect with their light. You don't even have to know what their light is. You just know they have it because they're here on earth, right? Just a principle. So I love you. I'm sorry. Please forgive me. And here's the added sentence. Please forgive myself and thank you. And I'm on day 3 of my 5-day challenge. We go over exactly how to do that. And there's, with each of those phrases, there's what to look for to really do really long forgiveness. But so to summarize, what I do is, number 1, set the intention. Number 2, start researching Ho'oponopono and follow the prompts that fall in front of your face that the universe provides.
That's fantastic. Thank you so much. And you just mentioned this 5-day challenge. Coming back to you, is there anything else that you want to share with us? We will put obviously the link in the show notes, so everybody who wants to attend can find you. Is there anything else that you would like to?
I really encourage you to get on a short call with me. I mean, I've got almost 27 years of forgiveness. I've forgiven family members. I've forgiven rape. I've forgiven parenting mistakes I did with my children. I've forgiven business mistakes. I've done the whole gambit. And and so if I can get to talk with you and find out what you want, I've got a systematic way of really helping you get on the other side so you can thrive even more than where you are now. And so the best way to do that is just to book a call with me today.
Fantastic. And as I said, I will put that link as well in the show note. Grace, very final question. If there was one take-home message that you would love everybody to remember from this conversation, what that would be?
Love melts fear.
So true. Well, as we wrap up today's episode, I hope that you are beginning to see forgiveness in a new light, not just as a personal virtue, but as a powerful business strategy as well. By letting go of past hurts and embracing the soft skills and feminine qualities, you open yourself up to a world of possibilities, greater creativity, stronger relationships, and a deeper sense of purpose in your work. And with this in mind, I want to leave you with a quote from Oprah Winfrey, who said, "Success in business requires learning how to forgive both yourself and others. It's about clearing the path for progress, not letting the past hold you back." Amen.
Amen.
Grace, thank you so much.
Oh my God, I just love this. This has been amazing. I've had chills going up and down my legs this entire time. So yay. Thank you for having this platform. This is awesome.
Oh, thank you so much. Well, we would love to know what you think about this topic. Are you or someone you know held back in business by the weight of grudges and past experiences? If so, I'm pretty sure that you will find my conversation with Grace very inspiring. But if you need more inspiration, then check Grace's work, her website, her challenge, and follow her on social media. You will find all the links in the description of today's episode. Hopefully not, but if you have been affected in any way by the topic we discussed today, as always, I invite you to seek professional help. Join me next time when we will continue exploring inspiring and challenging situations, because remember, we are together in this journey. Thanks for watching. If you enjoy this content, subscribe to our channel and don't forget to hit the notification bell and like this video. See you in the next one.